I heard the scream first, a high, piercing whinny that sliced straight through the quiet morning on my farm in rural Oregon. It didn't belong here. Not on this land I'd poured my life into for 15 years. My coffee mug slipped from my hand and clattered across the weathered porch boards as I bolted down the steps, boots kicking up dust on the sun-baked path. Golden light filtered through the ancient oaks lining the drive, but the peace I usually felt was shattered in an instant. Something was terribly wrong. Another scream ripped through the air, desperate and terrified. It was Ember, my prized chestnut mare, the one I'd raised from a wobbly foal 7 years ago. The foundation of my careful breeding program. I rounded the barn corner at full sprint and skidded to a stop about 20 yards from the east paddock gate. There she was, dancing backward with ears pinned flat against her skull, eyes wide with fear. Rogue, the unhandled rescue stallion we'd taken in just a week earlier, reared up on his hind legs, massive hooves slashing the air only inches from her flanks. His eyes rolled, white with panic. Nostrils flared blood-red, sweat darkening his coat. And there, leaning casually against the fence rail with her cell phone raised high, was Taylor, my 19-year-old sister, filming the whole chaotic scene like it was some viral TikTok moment. "They look cute together, don't they?" she said without glancing up, thumb scrolling idly, as if adjusting the frame. My heart hammered against my ribs, so hard I could feel it in my throat. I forced myself to approach the gate with slow, deliberate steps. One sudden movement, one wrong sound, and this could end in shattered bones, torn ligaments, or worse, years of meticulous breeding work destroyed in seconds. "Don't move," I said, my voice low and steady despite the adrenaline flooding my veins. "Don't speak. Don't do anything at all." Taylor rolled her eyes, but stayed put, still filming. Ember spotted me and let out another desperate whinny that twisted my stomach into knots. I'd bottle-fed this mare through her first nights, celebrated her first ribbon, planned her future foals with precision. 5 agonizing minutes later, moving like I was underwater, I managed to separate them, guiding Ember to safety in her own paddock while securing Rogue in the round pen with careful, measured pressure. My hands trembled as I ran them over Ember's warm neck, checking for any cuts or swelling. The air smelled of sweat and fear. "What exactly were you thinking?" I finally asked Taylor, who was now reviewing her footage on her phone, replaying the near disaster with a small smile. "I was trying to help speed up your breeding program," she shrugged, as casually as if she'd just rearranged my pantry. "You said Ember was ready this season with a carefully selected stallion. Rogue seemed perfect." I felt the blood drain from my face. Rogue is a rescue who hasn't even cleared quarantine yet. His blood work isn't back. I specifically told you he stays isolated. My voice shook with the effort of holding back the full force of my anger. Taylor glanced up, her expression bored and unchanged. "It would have been fine if you hadn't overreacted." The realization hit like a physical punch to the chest. This wasn't carelessness. She had deliberately ignored every warning I'd given her. Just 1 week earlier, I'd watched my parents' SUV disappear down the driveway after dropping her off for what they called a summer character-building experience. "She needs responsibility from someone she respects," Mom had said, avoiding my eyes. What she really meant was they'd run out of options with Taylor's attitude back home. I'd laid out the rules clearly. This was a working farm, not a resort. Isolation protocols for new horses were non-negotiable, signs posted. Gates locked. No exceptions. Taylor had rolled her eyes then too, already glued to her phone. The warning signs had piled up fast. Expensive tack left out in the rain to ruin. Safety briefings skipped while she texted friends. Complaints about the 5 a.m. feeding schedule. Yesterday I'd found empty beer bottles half hidden behind the hay bales. despite my strict no-alcohol rule on the property. But this crossed into something far darker. This was deliberate endangerment of animals worth tens of thousands. Animals I loved like family. I pulled out my phone with shaking fingers and dialed the emergency vet.
Dr.
Lang, we need blood work on both horses immediately. Ember might need sedation. She's badly spooked. Taylor didn't even look up during the call. Just kept texting with one foot propped against the fence post. Sipping a soda like nothing had happened.
Dr.
Lang arrived in under 30 minutes. Her face grim as she examined the horses. "You're incredibly lucky we didn't have fatalities today," she said quietly, glancing toward Taylor, who had wandered toward the barn. "A stallion in that state could have killed your mare, or any person who stepped between them." Something cold and crystal clear hardened inside me as I watched her work. When Taylor sauntered back, I met her eyes directly. "Pack your things. You're leaving now." She blinked, surprised for the first time all morning. "Because of this?"
Don't be so dramatic.
"It was just a mistake." I turned away to assist the vet. My decision felt as solid as the concrete-anchored fence posts surrounding us. This wasn't even a mistake.
It was a choice.
The invoice glowed accusingly on my laptop screen at 2:13 a.m., the numbers stark against the dark kitchen. $2,347.18. Itemized line by line. Emergency farm call. Sedation for Ember. Full blood panels for both horses. Precautionary rabies titers. Antibiotic injections. And a scheduled follow-up. The farmhouse creaked around me, empty except for my ragged breathing and the slow tick of my grandfather's old wall clock. 6 hours earlier, I'd stood in the gravel drive watching my parents' car pull away with Taylor's suitcase in the back seat, her face blank behind the passenger window. Now the silence pressed in heavy. I rubbed my gritty eyes, shoulders aching from the day's tension. Down the hallway, framed certificates and ribbons chronicled 30 years of breeding history, my grandfather's first Tennessee Walker, my grandmother's meticulous bloodline logs, my own blue ribbon at age 12. I stepped onto the back porch. The night air carried the sweet scent of timothy hay and distant pine. Flashlight in hand, I made my way to Ember's paddock. She stood quiet in her stall, ears pricking forward at my approach. The bandage on her flank glowed white in the beam. "Hey, pretty girl," I whispered. "How are you holding up?" Ember pushed her velvet muzzle into my palm. A sob caught raw in my throat. They could have died today. My fingers traced her neck, feeling the faint tremble still running through her muscles. "I'm sorry," I murmured into the darkness. "I should have known better." Back inside, my phone vibrated on the counter. I already knew what it was. Taylor's Instagram story loaded automatically, her face pressed close to Mom's, both wearing matching expressions of wounded indignation. The caption, "Some people can't handle a simple mistake." Comments flooded in from relatives and old friends. She was only trying to help. So dramatic. Family should come first. Give her another chance. She's just a kid. Just a kid. Taylor was 19, old enough to vote, to enlist, to understand consequences. I opened my laptop again and pulled up the security footage my manager Hank had insisted we install last spring. The timestamps told the truth. Taylor walking deliberately past 3 quarantine warning signs, studying the lock, casually leading Rogue straight toward Ember's paddock. Not a mistake. A choice. Memories surfaced. Taylor spilling red wine on the bride's mother at our cousin's wedding after being told her dress was inappropriate. Borrowing a boat that mysteriously returned with a damaged propeller. The pattern stretched back years. My mouse hovered over the forward button on the invoice. One click would send it to my parents with a payment request, stating clearly, "I will not absorb the cost of her choices anymore." The sun was breaking over the eastern ridge when Hank stepped through the barn door. travel mug in hand. His weathered face tightened at the sight of the yellow invoice on the clipboard. Jesus, he muttered, scanning the list. She could have killed them both. I sent it to my folks 20 minutes ago, I replied, the morning weight pressing down. Hank's hand rested briefly on my shoulder. About damn time. My phone rang 10 minutes later. Mom's name flashed. Cassidy and... What is this? Her voice pitched high, with indignation. $2,000? She's just a girl who made a mistake. I watched a red-tailed hawk circle over the east pasture, wings catching the early light. She deliberately put my animals in danger after I explicitly told her not to. She was trying to help.
No.
She wasn't. The security cameras show otherwise. Dad cut in from the extension. You've always been too hard on her. She came home devastated. I closed my eyes, feeling Hank's solid presence nearby. The years of work under my boots. The quiet strength of finally drawn boundaries. This isn't about punishment. It's about consequences. I ended the call before they could respond and turned toward the barn. Hay needed hauling. Water troughs needed filling. Ember needed her morning check. For the first time since Taylor arrived, I breathed freely on my own land. My phone buzzed for the 9th time that morning. I slid it face down on the worn oak desk where my grandfather once calculated feed ratios. The messages had started 3 days ago and become a flood. She's just a teenager.
Cassidy.
We all make mistakes. Aunt Marlene reminded me of the time I crashed Dad's truck at 18, conveniently forgetting I paid every repair penny myself. Mom called 7 times. I opened the bottom drawer and placed the phone with screenshots of every message, voicemail transcription, and missed call log. The folder was already thick,
Topped by Dr.
Lang's incident report and security footage stills. Hank approached from the feed storage, clipboard in hand, concern etched on his face. Feed store called. Your order's ready. He shifted his weight. Joyce mentioned people are talking about Taylor. The version they're hearing is that you threw your baby's sister out over nothing. I nodded, jaw tight. What version? That she was just trying to help and made a little mistake. His sun-lined eyes held steady. Joyce set them straight about what could have happened. But folks love drama more than facts. Aunt Lydia had called the farm line yesterday claiming Taylor gave a tearful interview about how I'd always hated her and was waiting for an excuse. Apparently, I was jealous because she was the pretty one. Hank snorted at that. I had new security cameras installed at both gates. Twice I'd found padlocks unlatched, not broken. Just opened by someone with a key. In the tack room, I prepared for a Portland client coming at 11 to see Whisper's colt. The farmer's market bustled under cloudless skies. I was there for coffee beans and to drop flyers for next month's open house when I spotted them. Mom.
Dad.
And Taylor clustered near the honey stand. Taylor leaned against Dad's shoulder, looking fragile in a way she never had on my farm. I could have turned away, avoided the staged confrontation. Cassidy. Mom called, voice carrying over the chatter. Heads turned. Thank goodness, we've been trying to reach you. I approached slowly, aware of curious stares from Mrs. Hanover, Tom from the hardware store, Pastor Wells. This isn't the place, I said quietly. Mom's eyes flashed. Apparently nowhere is, since you won't answer calls or texts. You've left us no choice. Taylor sniffled dramatically, drawing sympathetic glances. You're tearing this family apart over money. $2,000 versus your own sister. The unfairness stole my breath. $2,347 and 2 horses nearly killed. Explicit safety protocols violated. Deliberate endangerment of irreplaceable animals. Dad stepped forward, using his bulk for intimidation honed in 30 years of real estate. You need to reconsider. Family comes first. A small crowd gathered. I straightened my spine. You're right. Family does come first. That's why I can't allow Taylor back, because family protects what matters, respects boundaries, doesn't deliberately risk lives and then laugh about it. Taylor's sniffles stopped. Her eyes narrowed. I have video, I continued calmly.
Dr.
Lang's report. Documentation of every rule she knowingly broke. I have the right to decide who's welcome on my property. She's right. You know.
Dr.
Lang stood behind me, market basket on her arm. What happened could have ended with dead horses and injured people. In 30 years, I've rarely seen such blatant disregard. Jim Cooper, whose farm bordered mine, called out from the cheese stall, Cassidy runs the finest breeding operation in the county. If she says there was danger, there was danger. The crowd murmured. The tide shifted. I walked away, leaving them in stunned silence. When I returned home, Hank met me at the gate. Your folks showed up. Got worked up when I wouldn't let them in. Hank had to suggest they leave before calling the sheriff. That night, I brushed Ember's gleaming coat by lantern light. You know what Grandpa used to say about fences? I murmured. They're not just to keep things out. They protect what's within. The manila folder sat heavy in my hands, thick with evidence, screenshots of Taylor unlatching Rogue's stall, removing the quarantine sign, leading him toward Ember. Timestamps match my account.
Dr.
Lang's report detailed significant stress, immune compromise, disrupted breeding cycle. Hank watched as I organized the timeline with witness statements from the feed delivery driver who saw Taylor ignore instructions. My attorney Janine's letter outlined liability clearly. Mom's latest text bubbled with emotional blackmail. Blood is thicker than water. Family comes first always. Dad threatened reconsidering my place in the will. New one-star reviews appeared on my farm's business page from fresh accounts using Taylor's phrasing. A video arrived from Taylor. Tear-stained and remorseful sounding. I've learned my lesson. Please let me come back. I closed it before finishing.
She was good at this.
I sealed the envelope containing my boundary statement, 3 paragraphs defining non-negotiables for any future relationship, payment of the vet bill acknowledging responsibility, public apology on the same platforms where she damaged my reputation, written acknowledgement of my property and rules. At the community charity auction, conversation died when I entered. Mom clutched Dad's arm, whispering. Betty Lawrence, a respected breeder, approached loudly, heard what happened. You did right by those horses. Our responsibility isn't optional. Whispers rippled, not Taylor's version anymore. My cease and desist on the fake reviews had gone out. Word traveled fast in small towns. 2 days later, Hank jogged across the paddock with his phone. In the local Facebook group, Taylor had painted herself as victim. But respected trainers demolished the narrative with professional explanations of the liability. Fellow breeders, clients, even Dr. Lang joined in. Taylor went quiet, no new posts. Mom texted, I saw the vet report. We need to talk. Dad followed. Your grandfather would have done the same. Aunt Celia, I think I misunderstood. The first cracks appeared. Not surrender, but understanding. The boundaries weren't fences to punish. They were foundations. I spotted them through the plate glass of Porter's Steakhouse, my family huddled like mourners. Mom straightened silverware. Dad checked his watch. Taylor stared at her phone. My stomach tightened as I adjusted the leather portfolio under my arm. Hank asked if I was sure. No, I admitted. But I'm doing it. Inside. Heads turned. Mom brightened with rehearsed hope. Cassidy, we saved you a seat. I sat at the opposite end with Hank as witness. The power shift was immediate. This is Hank Delgado. My stable manager, I said. He's here as a witness. Dad's jaw tightened. A witness? This is family dinner, not court. Mom set down her glass. We're concerned about your spiritual well-being. Holding resentment isn't Christian. Forgiveness is a virtue. Uncle Jim added. Taylor's sorry. Your grandmother would want peace. Taylor looked up, eyes red-rimmed. I made a mistake.
Cass.
I'm really sorry. I opened the portfolio, revealing organized documents. This wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate endangerment. Rogue had unknown medical history. Ember is worth $30,000. Her screams still wake me.
Dr.
Lang's report confirmed trauma. I laid out non-negotiables. Payment of $2,347.18. Public apology. Written respect for boundaries. Dad exploded, fist slamming the table. Your horses matter more than flesh and blood? Mom's mask slipped. Real tears fell. Why won't you just let it go? Because some things should not be let go. Some boundaries once crossed change everything. Taylor's facade cracked into resentment. You think you're so perfect on your precious farm. I stood. The vet bill is due by month's end. The rest is up to you.
Outside.
The evening air felt like freedom. Hank asked if I was okay.
No.
But I will be. 1 year later. Frost crunched under my boots as I crossed the east paddock. Ember approached, her coat gleaming, 3 spring foals dancing behind her. The breeding program had expanded successfully. Hank grinned about a new client interested in Northern Lights colt.
Katie,
my 14-year-old student, was coming for her lesson, eager, respectful, the opposite of Taylor's indifference. Jet grazed peacefully in the western paddock, gelded and gentle now. That evening on the porch with chosen family, Hank and his husband,
Dr.
Lang, neighboring farmers, we toasted the farm's best year with Oregon Pinot Noir. To clear boundaries. Mom calls every other Sunday now, careful conversations, genuine in their awkwardness, asking about the horses by name. Dad hasn't spoken since the restaurant. Some fences stand permanent. The family split, but some reached out after the dust settled. A letter arrived from Taylor in Seattle, where she started college. She admitted knowing the risks, wanting to prove I couldn't control everything, not realizing consequences until someone made her face them. You're the only one who held the line. I finally understand what you were protecting. I folded it carefully beside Ember. Maybe someday. But not today. The sunset cast long shadows across the valley. I stood between the securely fenced fields, hand on the metal gate. Some lines shouldn't be crossed. That's not coldness. That's care. Where do you draw the line between forgiveness and enabling? When does protecting what you've built become necessary? Even when it hurts those you love? I already know my answer. I'm living it.